So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and today we have a siege on EDORAS in which ISENGARD have clearly destroyed Rohan because they are now in residence here within the Golden Halls, and some of Rohan's old allies in the shape of Dale, Mirkwood and Numenor, who, if you squint, they kind of look like Arnor, have come to reclaim Rohan. Now, I know I did say that I was going to do a map that was dubbed the Witch King's Sanctum today, but unfortunately, I've had a real nightmare with that one. Like, I know that you may have noticed that some of the new maps have been crashing a little bit for me lately, and I've managed to power through. But that one being such a big map, such a long one, and it was crashing constantly. It was an absolute nightmare. I don't know what's causing that, however, it doesn't seem to be happening. I mean, if it crashes on this map as well, then it's probably something wrong with my recording software. But honestly, it hasn't been crashing on maps that sort of were in the game previously, so I believe it's partly to do with the new maps that have been added, and I don't know if any QA was actually done on those maps to make sure that they actually work more often than not, because the only way that I can make it work is by putting it on absolute lowest settings, which look like trash, and that's the settings which normally people will play on, which is probably why that game was able to go through without anyone crashing on it, to be honest. I don't know what's happening there, but it's completely disheartening. It's also, I have very limited time to record these now, so there is potential for, if that happens, that there may be no video for like 4, 5 or even 6 days. That's the sort of thing that can set me back. Unfortunately, I just took the decision to just say, I'm not going to do this map anymore and just move on to a different replay, but I'm not happy. It's not how I want to be spending the entirety of my weekend, sort of grinding through a battle which is crashing consistently, and yeah, I'm not too happy, and there's a potential that it could be my recording software, but I somewhat doubt it because I can almost guarantee that this map won't crash. So yeah, I don't really know what to do about that, because I want to show that map because it looks cool. It was clearly a nice lore-friendly battle, but what am I supposed to do? Just go through it? Each 1,000 frame of progress I make through the replay, it crashes. I'll be here for like 20 hours trying to get one battle done. So yeah, I'm not pleased at all, but we'll move on, and hopefully this battle will make me feel just a little bit better about things. So we'll start off with the attackers, starting off with Big Guns 09, who's going to be playing this Dale, so the other Northmen who are going to be trying to reclaim this land from the foes that killed their cousins. We have some Dalian bowmen here, and obviously Dale, when they're on the attack in a siege, one of the best things that they can bring are their heavier archers like the Dalian bowmen and the Bardian marksmen over here, because obviously it means that they can really start to lay down bit of a marker from afar. Very difficult to defeat Dale in a skirmish fight. There are factions which can contest it with them, factions like Umbar or Gondor, for example, but Isengard will struggle a little bit more so because they're much more reliant on their crossbows and their close range punch, but we shall see. There's also some Lake Town infantry over here who have a couple of volleys in them, much like the Corsair infantry from Umbar, before they then pull out their swords and shields and instead become light infantry. We also have some Lake Town pikemen as well as some Dalian spears, so obviously Dale are going to have to cut corners somewhere. They are on the attack here, and the Lake Town units are a good way to do that, whether it be the infantry or the pikes. Nice and efficient there, and it does mean that they won't be completely outclassed from afar by the Uruk-hai pikemen. They at least have some sort of answer to that. More Dalian spears. Swordmasters of Esgaroth, interesting choice. Not the worst one, however, because it will allow them to carve through some of the lower tier elements that Isengard may have brought with relative ease, with those big Zweihanders, obviously good defensive skill and high base damage. Some more Dalian bowmen back here. Several units of dismounted Earls of Dale, again another good choice because they are the sort of unit which can go toe to toe with the Uruk-hai infantry and defeat them actually, and that'll give Dale a good amount of power there. And then obviously back here, Dalian Paladins, another very good unit, because most of what Isengard have at the higher end is going to be more heavily reliant on the armour, and those big great maces of the Dalian Paladins should be more than sufficient to crack through most of that Uruk-hai plate. Meanwhile, we shall now move on to Numenor, played by Allfather, and he has got several rams that he is pushing towards the outer palisade of EDORAS, which of course could be peeled off. We have some Balagai footmen, some basic spears, some Romena about him, which are another unit of really good line infantry. Again, Uruk-hai infantry don't get outclassed too easily. They're, for what they cost, they're a good and efficient line infantry unit, very good as well. Mostly, they're a step above most of the other sort of standard human line infantry units, but the Romena about him are not standard by any means, and they will be able to out-damage, certainly, the Uruk-hai infantry. More Balagai footmen. We have some Balagai pikemen just in behind them as well. A couple of units of Romena about him. We we have some Seafarers of Nindamos, so some nice javelin fire is going to be coming forth, and then some more higher tier units in the Pharazim Swordmasters and the Royal Legion of Armenelos, some Belagair archers out to the side so they can put some pressure on from afar. Also, some Trebuchet and a unit of Romena Boabarim. So the Trebuchet is very accurate, of course, which means, you know, the clustered forces of Isengard will be taking damage from them if they're not careful, and then the Boabarim, of course, with their armor-piercing missiles, can also be a real danger. However, Numenor going quality heavy, and another faction that will almost certainly go quality heavy is Mirkwood, played by Mini 4 Ninja, gone for a couple of units of Hiri Peng. There's probably some hidden units in here, but we obviously can't see them. Some Spears of Emenduia, some upgraded Hiri-Auth, another unit which should be able to defeat standard Uruk-hai, upgraded Hiri-Ek and Hiri-Lung, at least one of them is upgraded. We also have some Elven King's Palace Guard, a really strong unit of infantry. Very few units in the game can go one-on-one with them and come out victorious. No units can come out completely unscathed. Some Ents also as well, which can be used to try and really push their way through the outer Isengard defence. Only one ram though, so you know, perhaps they can bottle Mirkwood up, and Mirkwood, of course, not the best in a really grindy fight, but we shall see. Now we shall move on to the defenders, who took their sweet time setting up, I must say. 9,000 frames in and they finally decided to hit the start battle button. We have Waffles and we have, I think, Paladin? Yes, so both from the Arm clan here. So some Uruk-hai archers here on the front, which, you know, you need to have archers when you're on the defence, just, you know, so that you have that range power. Uruk-hai archers, though, will not be able to skirmish and win against any of the factions on display here today. It will be very much a token effort. Range damage is going to have to be the crossbows, but at least they have something. They won't be completely powerless to the enemy archers, which is good. Dunlending clansmen, unlike, you know, there is no cavalry really, so that bonus won't be coming into play. They will just be cannon fodder. Uruk-hai infantry, in spite of the fact that all of the factions on display have potentially better line infantry than the Uruk-hai infantry, they are still a good and solid base to an Isengard defence. We have some Uruk-hai archers up on the hill, some more infantry, some Dunlending berserkers, so a bit of AP. That's not going to be useful against Mirkwood. They'd be better off going up against Numenor and Dale, certainly. Uruk-hai crossmen and pikemen here from Waffles as well, getting ready to accept the advance of Numenor. Some Snagar archers. They need to be careful because they're immediately going to get skirmished down by Belagair archers if they are not wise and retreat. Some pikes, crossbows, more Snagar skirmishers, some more Uruk-hai infantry getting ready to accept the advance of Dale. Some Uruk-hai reavers, a good choice against Dale for the most part, because obviously that AP is going to be very useful. Some more infantry and pikes, so obviously a lot of just good Uruk-hai units here, a nice solid defence. Uruk-hai pikemen, some half-orc Baneguard. Uruk-hai berserkers are another good choice to send in down here. Of course, at the high end, Isengard do have a lot of armour-piercing options, which will be useful against both Numenor and Dale. 2 units of Isengard ballista, which could be incredibly useful up here, obviously pointing in each direction. 1 pointing towards Dale, 1 pointed towards Mirkwood. This is a fantastic way to deal a lot of damage quite quickly to Mirkwood. We shall see if they're successful. Some trolls to the right hand, some more crossbows, the Lurtz hunting pack, that body piercing also another good tool to be used against Mirkwood, potentially 2 units of them. Very similar compositions, in fact they could be exactly the same compositions based on what we've seen. And then 2 units of Nazkai here in the town centre. This road, however, is completely empty. I'm not sure if the defenders are aware of it. They should be, based on how much time they spent setting up their defences. But maybe they aren't, and maybe Mirkwood can push through and go this way instead. Of course, that will put them at the mercy of the hunting pack, but we shall see. Without further ado, let's begin, and hope that this one doesn't crash as well, because I'm sick to the back teeth of this game crashing at this point. Now though, we shall see how the attackers decide to approach this, because for the most part they are pretty quality heavy. I mean, both Numenor and Mirkwood don't really have too much of a choice other than to go more heavy on quality, but they both do have lower end options. But if you really want to get the best out of them, you do need to lean a little bit more into their quality. Dale, on the other hand, do have a bit more in terms of numbers. They have decided to bring some Lake Town units, and even the Dalian units are on the cheaper end in comparison to their 2 allies. So when it comes to numbers, Dale are going to have to be the cannon fodder more so than anything else, I would suggest, in this particular fight. But even Dale, to be honest, have lent more heavily into sort of the Earls and the Swordmasters. There's also actually the Dalian Royal Guard, which I completely forgot to mention. So another unit of bodyguard tier archers, obviously not armour piercing in the same way that the Black Shots are. They do have significantly more ammo, and they are tougher actually, I think, in melee. They're tougher to kill in melee anyway, with a bit more melee defence, so perhaps a better place overall to put the general. But so far, Isengard feeling fairly comfortable here in residence. Numenor looks like they're moving now. It is, after all, the onus is on the attackers to move. You're never going to get the defenders to move outside of the gates, especially not against skirmish-heavy armies like this, the Healy Peng, are now moving forward, and as soon as they get into range, they should be more than sufficient to deal with some banks of Uruk-hai archers. They really don't need to be too concerned about this, I don't think. But they're actually falling back, maybe seeing, maybe the terrain disadvantage they're at does mean the Uruk-hai archers can get in range of them just as quickly as the opposite. I mean, these 2 units of Healy Peng should really be enough to put significant pressure on the long-range elements of the Isengard army. This unit of Healy Peng is maybe getting a little bit too close to the walls, though. There's the trebuchet, trying to shoot into the centre mass here. I mean, there's a lot of ballistae just right in a line here, so if they shoot around here, they could hit them fairly easily. Here comes the Uruk-hai ballista fire now coming in, and what are they actually going after? They are going after the Healy Peng, which is a bit of a mistake in my mind. If they can hit the Ents, they should absolutely be trying to go after them with flaming shots. Obviously, every Ent that Mirkwood loses is going to be a real tragedy for them. Killing some of the crew there, but not getting any of the artillery pieces. You really don't want to be hitting the crew with a trebuchet shot, that's kind of a waste. Obviously he is going for the artillery pieces and not the crew, but again, well, you can see actually the Uruk-hai archers chasing Mirkwood outside. It's a bold move. These Uruk-hai archers could be very easily picked apart by any hidden archers that Mirkwood may have as well, although for the most part I think they have gone for a slightly heavier look to their army with like the Hir units, the Alf, the Peng, the Lang. There is some Wooden Realm Patrol that have just revealed themselves as well, but I can't imagine there's a huge amount of this kind of unit in Mirkwood's back pocket in this particular battle. Obviously with a limited amount of funds and how expensive the heavier elven units tend to be, Healy Peng are now retreating, as are the Uruk-hai archers, seeing the Ents getting maybe a little bit too close to comfort, although these 4 seem to have a death wish because they're just charging headlong into the Mirkwood army. Meanwhile, over here, you can see the half-orc Baneguard taking some fire immediately from the Balagyr archers. No response immediately coming from Isengard. There's some guards of Orthanc over here as well, very heavily armoured unit of course, very able to stand up to a good amount of pressure. Uruk-hai pikemen taking some damage as well from Numenor, so Numenor getting what they want so far and just sort of taking their time. Oh, that was very nearly a nice hit on an artillery piece. They just got the crew. I mean, the crew's taking a lot of damage here, but the trebuchet has very limited ammunition with its newfound accuracy, and the trebuchet would probably be better off, honestly, trying to shoot into some Uruk-hai blobs to really break them up, and then allow the quality of all 3 attacking armies to do the rest. There's really nothing in terms of archers down here, though, which is going to allow Dale to move in with their Lake Town infantry as well. So while Mirkwood are having to contend with the Uruk-hai archers, Dale and Numenor here are getting free shots into the Isengard force, and that's partially because there's a limited amount of Uruk-hai archers. You can see here both pikes and reavers are good target for any archer, especially the reavers, obviously, with their just leather armour rather than the black Uruk-hai plate that the Uruk-hai pikemen get to wear. There you can see Mirkwood just hovering on the periphery. Numenor still content to try and skirmish. You can see there's a lot of dead Snaga, a few dead pikes as well. There are crossbows over here, but once again, I mean, the Balagyr archers, they're going to be able to... I can hear the whistling of ballista bolts. What are they actually firing at? This ballista from Waffles is moving a little bit further back. Again, the replay name for this was First Reforged Siege, so for some of these players I'd assume it's their first battle, although I don't think it's the first battle for Paladin and Waffles. I've seen them before. I've not seen Big Gun 09, but I've seen everyone else, so I mean the Dalian player is the only one who I've not seen the name of at all. And Big Gun is doing exactly the right thing here. He's sending up his lower end archers first of all, and he's getting some nice free kills here on these potentially dangerous armor-piercing shock infantry units. Exactly the sort of thing which could make life a little bit more difficult for his Earls, especially if the fight got bogged down. But so far, the attack is content to take things slowly, as well they probably should. Oof, that's a pretty nasty volley there, though, from something. And I think it's from the Uruk-hai crossbowmen, so a good target, honestly, the Ramona Abarim for the Uruk-hai crossbowmen. They don't have a perfect shot into them, but this will still be enough to do some pretty significant damage, and the Abarim are an expensive unit of line infantry which will be able to do significant damage to a lot of the Uruk-hai. Balagyr archers still firing away, the Bawabrim are in place. I can still see the ballista bolts firing back and forth. I think they are actually going after the Balagyr, or are they? No, they're going after the Bawabrim now, I think, which is the better target. I mean, you could tell that maybe these players aren't as experienced because they should absolutely be using flaming shots. makes them significantly more dangerous, and in that case it might actually be worth going after the Boabarim. But not the case here. Meanwhile, Numenor are going to be battering down 3 different sections of the palisades surrounding Edoras. That was a nice shot from the trebuchet, getting right into the centre mass there of the Uruk-hai pikemen. Substantially better use of their ammunition than going after the artillery, I think, because they've already wasted far too many shots and only really have kills on the ballista crew to show for it. Meanwhile, this unit of Abadim, they would actually be they only need 1 more hit before the palisade goes down, which is a good thing because they're actually taking substantial damage. Dale's army is a little bit far away. Numenor, I think, seeing the losses that they are taking, but also seeing the casualties that they themselves are inflicting with their archers and trebuchets, I think they're seeing that this battle is going to get underway fairly quickly as Edoras' palisade begins to crumble here in the corner of the settlement. But if Numenor comes forward, Mirkwood and Dale are going to have to follow, and Dale there you can see that the Dalian army is on the move, which is good to see. They're going to be moving in, and with Dale's rather substantial skirmish line they should be able to offer a lot of support, and also moving in with those pikes and the earls. The swordmasters should be a pretty good addition as well. Anything that isn't sort of the more heavily armoured Uruk-hai units will fall in droves to something like the swordmasters of Esgaroth. Ballista still in position. I mean, you can see why Mirkwood are a little bit more reluctant to move in. They definitely have more in the way of archers pointing at them. They also have the very nastily positioned ballista from Waffles' army. They also, as the elves of course, smaller armies all around. But if their allies move in, they too need to move in. At the very least, they need to put some pressure on the Isengard defences with their archers. They can't just afford to allow Isengard to focus down individual armies. Speaking of which, Balagai footmen and Romena about him charging in. The Uruk-hai pikemen are holding the line, albeit some of them are pointing the wrong way. They will sort themselves out eventually, though. The problem for Numenor here is going to be the crossbows. Crossbows are going to be able to do a pretty significant amount of damage to the Abadim, which they will need to, because alone these Uruk-hai pikes will start to buckle under this Numenorian pressure. And Numenor also pushing in over here, so I can appreciate that Allfather is being aggressive here. Balagai pikemen and Abadim moving forward as well, catching out the half-orc Baneguard, and they will be able to kill them off. And of course, if they go down this way, they will be able to give some support to any form of Mirkwood assault that may happen. Isengard do have a pretty golden opportunity here, though, to do some significant damage to Numenor if they can get some crossbows into a good position or some javelins. You know, they have got some over here, but you can see here the Uruk-hai crossbows under pressure from the Balagai archers. Those crossbows may be out of ammo already, however, with all the shots they've taken from the Romena Abadim, so they're just going to charge into melee, try and shore up this line, but they're going to need something a little bit more substantial here, Isengard, if they're going to continue to hold this particular street. Half-orc Baneguard charging down the hill. Uruk-hai Berserkers also on the move. Mirkwood now on the way forward. They're actually going to poke a hole in the wall rather than the gate, which is probably wise, because I think the gaps you make in the palisade of Edoras are actually bigger than the gate gaps, so probably is wiser to do that. You can see now that Dale getting into position, and with no sort of ranged resistance to speak of, they're free to set up their archers as they see fit. Some Snaga over here as well. Let's see. Will potentially trying to counter-attack outside the gate here with some Dunlending Clansmen, or they may just be getting into position. Uruk-hai archers continuing to force the Mirkwood archers to retreat. Mirkwood don't necessarily need to be too scared of the Isengard archers, though. They can move in and easily skirmish them down. A big puff of rotten meat in the background over there. Ah, the ballista now going after the Ents, and one of them scored a direct hit. Considering they're not using the flaming shot, that's quite impressive. So you can see here that 3 shots, 3 kills on those Ents, which that is actually a decent use of the Isengard ballista. The Ents can be such a problem, especially if you don't know how to deal with them, sort of getting sort of higher damage units in, like Axemen. So this is probably a good thing for more inexperienced players, even if they don't realise it, to kill off some of these units. You can see here the rotting meat being flung in. The Snaga Stalkers, or Skirmishers I should say, are in position. Dale are now also sending in some units to support the Numenorian push. Isengard have got some Uruk-hai Berserkers in there, which will certainly slow things down, if not outright stop this assault. But with the Seafarers of Nindamos here, the Isengard front line is undoubtedly taking some pretty heavy damage here. Romena Abadim defeat seems certain, which is surprising. I mean, it does go to show how tough the Guards of Orthanc really are, that they're able to stop this Numenorian assault. In comes some Balagai archers just to add some more manpower to this front line, so certainly Numenor being the biggest aggressors here so far. Dale's still holding back a little bit, although they are now getting into position to make their own hole into the settlement, and if they push in with all their might as well, Isengard will struggle to hold this side of the settlement, I think. But it's good to see that even if Dale are lagging behind in terms of ways into the city, they're still sending some units in to support Numenor. In come the Seafarers now, out of ammunition, obviously a very limited ammo supply on them. Lots of death on the Remnant about him there. Snaga skirmishes and Uruk-hai crossbows in position. Oof. You can see there another ballista shot going right through the Seafarers there. I think they're out of ammunition already, but still, with such a perfect shot lined up, certainly not a bad thing. And there go Dale with now their own gap into the settlement that they may use, pulling the ram out of the way. Bit of damage here on this wall as well. Mirkwood have a way in, but they have decided not to use it so far. I mean, that's okay for the time being. I think they're going to try and make another hole into the settlement as well. Still that ballista looming large on top of the hill. Probably proving to be the biggest block for Mirkwood so far. The guards of Orthanc and the Uruk-hai infantry continuing to hold this line. See if their luck holds. Balagaya footmen moving forward. A very depleted unit of Balagaya footmen, but it's better than nothing. A lot of Lake Town units coming in here. Those Snaga skirmishers continuing to poke and prod at the Numenoran Dale manpower on this particular choke point. Another way into the settlement for Mirkwood. The Uruk-hai berserkers still alive on the front line, still 52 of them. With that AP damage, Numenor will not want to be here. Dale won't either. I mean, obviously Lake Town infantry are not going to be a match for berserkers, but the AP at least won't be as efficient as it could be. Dale Royal Guard. I mean, this is where you can see a newer player in action. Like, at this point, Dale needs to be busting a gut to get into the settlement and take some of the pressure off of Numenor. It's not enough to just send a single unit of infantry and say, there you are, I'm helping. You know, Numenor is dying out here, and Dale need to put some pressure on them as well. You know, they, like with Mirkwood, at the very least, they need to be utilising their archers to try and wear Isengard down. Give Isengard something to think about, because at the moment, Isengard are free to essentially completely focus on Numenor, while Dale and Mirkwood drag their heels. And again, it may be that Mirkwood and Dale weren't ready to attack, but when one of your allies attacks like Numenor has here, you need to move with them. You can't afford to just leave them out in the sticks, as they have been here. Meanwhile, the Ents are moving in, getting into the settlement now. What are they going to go after? I mean, there's Uruk-hai infantry here. Is there anything that's... well, there's archers, but they're going in here all on their lonesome again. Another move which is maybe not something a more experienced player would do. They're already damaged, and now the Ents are going to be hideously exposed unless they can get out of here. I mean, to be fair, hit and run. Yeah, that was actually a good play. I take it back. I thought there was another unit over here that would be able to stop them, but I guess everything they had over here has been committed to try and stop Numenor from wrapping around and supporting Mirkwood. So a good little hit and run there. Nothing really of note was lost. There's a couple of Ents over here, though, which could get caught, which would be a real shame. Still some Uruk-hai archers up on the hill. The Dunlending clansmen are moving forward again. Maybe a little bit of an experience shining through here. The Dunlending clansmen have just been given an attack order onto the Ents, and now they're going to pursue them, and they're obviously going to be absolutely ripped to pieces by the Mirkwood army. Here the Alth and Spears of Emondwyr are easily going to be able to kill off Dunlending clansmen. I'm sure the Dunlanders are just happy that they managed to destroy Rohan once and for all, but they could have been a little bit more useful than that. Even militia spears have their place. Lake Town infantry starting to rout off. Obviously the lowest tier of Dalian units starting to feel the pressure, especially against the Uruk-hai berserkers. A scary unit indeed to face. Now we can see Dale starting to move in, putting more pressure on the Isengard line. Combination of Earls and Lake Town pikemen on the front line. The Swordmaster of Escaroth also filtering in will be a real presence. But the main thing here is Dale are going to be putting pressure on the front line, but they're also going to be doing a lot of damage with their archers. That, however, is a real problem. Dale very lucky here that the Isengard Ballistae are not using their flaming shot, because that, you know, even without flaming shot, to be honest with you, that was devastating right into the centre mass of this Dalian blob. You can see here some Uruk-hai berserkers heading down the hill, but they will be a prime target for all these Dale archers, which this is the main source of damage, I think, for Dale for the time being. They can put a ton of pressure on them here. The Athala Rangers also revealing themselves, so some body piercing. 4 very accomplished units of archers here, and let's not forget the damage they've already done with some Lake Town infantry. The Trebuchet crew have charged in, obviously using all of their ammunition at this point, but they're just going to be hunted down and destroyed by some Uruk-hai pikemen. Easy enough for them. Some Snaga skirmishes as well. Uruk-hai berserkers on the front line. Still, the Pharazim Swordmasters Isengard maybe getting a little bit too big for their boots, pursuing Numenor a little bit too far, and now the Guards of Orthanc have well and truly met their match, going up against the Pharazim Swordmasters, one of the scariest units of heavy swordsmen in the game. Only really the Temple Executioners, the Haven Guard, and the Noldoran Blade Masters can count themselves in the same league as them. Possibly the Dunedain Captains if they have their armour upgraded, but they're a little bit further behind, I think. Uruk-hai Infantry now meeting the advance here, a joint advance from Numenor and Mirkwood. Once again, it's the Isengard Ballista, which is going to be causing a lot of damage here to the attackers as they move forward. And they need to do this because the one unit of Uruk-hai Infantry is not going to be enough to hold this blob of attackers back for too long. Here you can see the Hiri Alth are also in position. They're taking damage from something. It's Uruk-hai Archers. But with their armour upgrade, and actually it is on the side with their shields, so that's something which Mirkwood have in their favour. So this is one of the instances where Mirkwood should be okay, actually, at taking arrow fire. There goes another ballista shot. There's some Hiri Peng firing away as well, with that Isengard Ballista taking a big chunk out of these forces over here. Some Snaga skirmishes, I think, falling back. You can see here some Dunlending Berserkers also in position to potentially stop any Numenorian advances through here. But Numenor are pretty much committed everything at this point. Where's the Royal Legion? There they are. So yeah, Numenor going pretty much all in. There's also the Ents over here giving them a hand, and at this point they should finally have enough to crack through this defence. You can see there the Dunlending Berserkers charging in. It's brave of them to do this because they're not really going to make too much of a dent into the Pharazim Swordmasters. The defensive skill and just the all-round stats are going to be far too much for them. But it will at least engage them for the time being. It has forced the Adunaim Shadowbows into temporarily leaving the settlement as well, so that's something in their favour. Dale, meanwhile, they have come forward in numbers, but so far Isengard have stood very firm against the Dalian advance. The combination of Uruk-hai Infantry and Pikes holding the front line, but of course the main event here is going to be the Isengard ranged units, not only the Ballista, but also the crossbows. The Snaga skirmish is also in a perfect position, so while things are turning around for Numenor and Mirkwood have had a decent start, Dale are really struggling over here. Like, Isengard have taken losses, but this is a huge swath of the Dalian army which is being pinned by javelins and by crossbow bolts. Swordmasters of Askaroth, I think maybe trying to sneak their way through so they can attack them. The Uruk-hai pikemen on their way over, but also being shot immediately by the Bardian marksman. More reinforcements on the way down, some Nazkai and some trolls. Like, it's not the worst idea perhaps for Isengard to think about trying to completely destroy Dale here, but it is risky because if they don't manage it, it's a lot of resources to dump into a lost cause. Royal Legion of Armanelos and the Ents now carrying forward. Another unit of Uruk-hai Pikes has been sent forward to try and hold this line with the Berserkers, but I don't know, I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. It'll be enough to hold them back for a little while longer, but especially there with the Adunaim Shadowbows in close proximity. You would imagine that this is going to be an inevitable attacking victory. Over here, meanwhile, Snaga skirmishers throwing their javelins in, which, you know, perhaps that's what they were hoping for, just pin them in place with the Dunlending Berserkers and then use the javelins on the Swordmasters. But you can see how quickly the Pharazim Swordmasters have just absolutely torn through the Dunlending Berserkers. Those bilateral axes not helping them here against the finest Numenorians. Meanwhile, you can see here that Mirkwood are pushing up the hill. They're potentially going to try and link up with Numenor here. They're not going to try and go up the primary hill that leads to the Golden Hall just yet. Spears of Emondwe are getting into the Uruk-hai Archers, which is going to be a fairly easy victory for them as well, you would say. The Uruk-hai continuing to hold the line, however, in difficult circumstances. Here you can see the Hiri Alth now moving forward after taking some damage from another unit of archers. The Lurtz Hunting Pack getting into melee. They used all their ammunition, I would assume. Again, it's hard to tell when they're actually using their ammo, but they're pretty good in melee as well, and with the backup of Uruk-hai Infantry and a unit of out-of-ammunition Uruk-hai Archers, this is a fairly solid Isengard front line, even against these heavier Elven units. Hiri Peng continuing to fire. Greenwood Rangers revealing themselves as well, which is a unit that Isengard absolutely want to deal with if they are able to. There you can see some routing Bane Guard. Again, these outer defences, like I said, I think it's only a matter of time before Isengard are forced to abandon them and instead focus entirely on trying to hold the Golden Hall at the top. The whistling of crossbow bolts going past, but Dale here This is where Isengard are at their strongest, with Nazkai and Trolls of the White Hand being committed over here as well. Isengard clearly want to deal with Dale first and foremost, and then focus on Numenor and Mirkwood. I mean, these Trolls of the White Hand, it will cost them their lives. Will it be a worthwhile use of their time? They're getting in and amongst the Dalian bowmen here, clobbering these Northmen one at a time. There are the Athala Rangers as well, so obviously the body piercing going to be playing a big part in this battle. Every faction brought one, including the defenders, obviously the Lurtz Hunting Pack, the Athala Rangers, the Adunheim Shadow Bows, and the Greenwood Rangers. Back go the Nazkai, their work done. I mean, Dale's infantry force certainly is in tatters. Even the Dalian Paladins here. I mean, that's why the Trolls have fallen away so quickly, because they did manage to, unfortunately, find where the Dalian Paladins were for them, which is like kryptonite for them. In comes what's left of Dale, those Trolls continuing to try and pick away at the Dalian Bowmen, but in come the Royal Guard, Bardian Marksmen, and other unit of Dalian Bowmen, which, honestly, the Bardian Marksmen and Royal Guard especially, good in melee. So Dale are most certainly not spent at this point. You can see here, the Royal Legion of Armenlos actually stopped in their tracks here, and the Ents dying off. They're going to need some additional support, I think, actually, to get through these pikes, or maybe not. The Royal Legion are trying to get in here. But it's difficult for them. They took so many losses from the crossbows, I think, that the pikes may very well take that one home unless they get some reinforcements. Uruk-hai crossbow, meanwhile, now out of ammunition, trying to stop the forward advance of Mirkwood, but that will, of course, be very temporarily, especially when you're talking about Hiri Lung making up the bulk of the attack. And then down over here, with all of these Elven units, especially the Elven King's Palace Guard, like the Lurtz Hunting Pack are okay in melee, but they're no match for a Mirkwood force like this. And again, this again speaks to a bit of an experience. You need to know when a cause is lost. Sending down a unit of really valuable infantry like the Nazkai into this death trap is not the best idea. Hiri Peng rotating themselves around. The Wooden Realm Patrol continuing to fire. The Greenwood Rangers, if they get into position as well, it could be devastating. But I mean, credit to Isengard in a sense, because they are, of course, continuing to send forces forward. They're not content to just sort of retreat when things are looking a bit dicey. Continuing to move forward. You can see there the Snaga finally being engaged in melee after doing so much damage to the Dalians by the Dalian Royal Guard. Looks like those crossbows up on the hill though. Eager to make the Dalians pay for that. Oof, that's another withering volley there, but it is only on Dalian bowmen ultimately. I don't think Dale will be too concerned about that, because it looks like finally Dale gaining the upper hand in this fight, and that's a real blow for Isengard. Isengard sent a lot down here to try and finish Dale off. They haven't been able to do that. While Dale are incredibly damaged, they're still standing. They're still going to be a factor in this fight, and it will of course mean that Numenor and Mirkwood were given a little bit more wiggle room. And that's a good thing for them. Hiri Lung taking damage now. Uruk-hai infantry being forced ever further backwards. Obviously, when the elves start, when the elves seize the momentum in melee, it can be very difficult to stop them. There goes the Dalian general at the hands of the Uruk-hai pikemen there. There goes the Numenorian general at the hands of the Uruk-hai pikes. Double whammy there. Probably going to be more effective in terms of morale shocks for Dale. Numenor made of sterner stuff, so they should be able to continue fighting for a little longer. Pharazim Swordmasters, after absolutely butchering some Dunlanders and some Snaga. There goes Thranduil as well at the hands of the Nazkai, so all of the attacking generals dying in quick succession there. Very interesting indeed. Defeat seems certain. Lake Town infantry shifting across. Hiri Lung just sort of hanging out now. Isengard continuing to hold, but I mean, hold is really all they're doing at this point. See over here the ballista crew being sent down. Nazkai victory seems certain. How is this possible? Ah, I see why it's possible. The Lurtz Hunting Pack. That's why Mirkwood's attack has faltered. The Lurtz Hunting Pack using their body piercing to extremely good effect here to rip through the side of the elves, and of course that was where the elders of the Elven King were, or Elven King's Palace Guard I should say. And that's a devastating loss for Mirkwood, because that was a real power play. It looked like they were going to be able to carry this momentum all the way to the town centre. It's not so. They should still win that fight, but at a far greater cost than I'm sure they were hoping for. Mirkwood need to return the favour somehow. They need to start using their Greenwood Rangers to shoot into these blobs. The crossbows and the hunting pack for the Isengard, as well as the ballistae, have been very effective so far. Their melee force is slightly less so, but that's to be expected when you're facing factions that are a little bit more quality focused like this. The Dalian Royal Guard continuing to fight, and unit of out of ammunition Uruk-hai crossbows as well as the Nazkai, so Isengard continuing to not give Dale free rein, and actually it looks like they will be able to force Dale back. More men were needed to do it, than Isengard were hoping for, I'm sure. But it does look as though Dale finally on their last legs here. They're never going to be able to advance up the hill, unfortunately for them. They still have a few units dotted around, but it is going to be up to Numenor, and especially Mirkwood, I think. Mirkwood here have got the most manpower going into the late game. Numenor, of course, taking some losses early on, and then Dale in the middle section of this siege. But as we head into the late game, it's looking increasingly like it's going to be on Mirkwood to try and pull out the victory here. Greenwood Rangers firing away with their body-piercing ammunition into those crossbows. Not a bad use of their time. They need to stop these crossbows from doing the damage that they've been doing after all. The Wooden Realm Patrol continuing to fire. More Hiri Lang on the way over. These Nazkai continuing to just do the business on the front line though. Ballista crew and skirmishers are the only support they're really getting. So eventually you'd imagine that this fight will flick in favour of Mirkwood, but Isengard defending from the front here and doing very well with it. Still that Lurtz hunting back at the back, which they're going to be a presence in melee as well. Here come the Spears of Emendwyr, as well as some Hiri Lang, so Mirkwood spreading their wings throughout the settlement at this point. Another unit of Uruk-hai infantry being asked to hold this line all on their lonesome. Can Isengard stand up to this sort of scrutiny from the elves after all of the casualties they've already taken? It'll be interesting to see, because it's, you know, obviously the attackers more quality than you would expect from them, so smaller armies, but as time wears on, will Isengard be able to continue to go blow for blow with them? Isengard now retreating after showing Dale the exit. That is going to be pretty much the end of Dale. They may have a couple of units still hidden around. The Adunheim Shadowbows have also taken a lot of damage from somewhere. I'd assume that crossbows got a hold of them at some point during this battle. Greenwood Rangers continuing to hover with malicious intent, I'm sure. Defeat seems certain for the Hiri Lang, so still the Nazkai really flexing their muscles. This fight would have gone very differently if the Palace Guard hadn't been shot by those Lurtz hunting pack. It was a very good catch from Isengard, very good use of their body-piercing archers, and of course if you can use your body-piercing archers well in a siege, that stands you in very, very good stead going into the later stages. And the Athala Rangers and the Adunheim Shadowbows, I had seen both of them firing, but the fact that Isengard is still putting up a fight on the outer layers suggests that they weren't used as well as they potentially could have been. The Greenwood Rangers, of course, though, with 6 missile damage rather than just 3. The Isengard Ballista now rotating around trying to shoot, so it still has ammunition. The other crew long dead at this point. I think this Ballista at this point may try and retreat, because it's only a matter of time here before they're engaged. Or actually, based on the fact that Nazkai have been charged in, I don't think Isengard are going to be retreating to the town centre. They're going to be trying to hold the settlement part of EDORAS. Still a few Dalians running around down there, including some depleted Royal Guard. Not the sort of thing Isengard want to see coming their way in the late game. No, Isengard are setting up a defence in the final layer. Very depleted Snaga skirmishers just throwing a few javelins in, trying to get a few more free kills before the inevitability of a final assault on the town centre begins. And there's still quite a lot of elven units, honestly, quite a lot of quality. I'm not sure whether Isengard have got what it takes to hold them all back. Uruk-hai crossbows taking damage, and of course now oh, excuse me. Did some dusting this morning, and I think there's still a bit of dust in the air. But the Greenwood Rangers now on the retreat. Isengard down this road, going to be exposed to the Elven Ranger fire, and that's going to be bad news for them. Nazkai on the front lines still just about, and the Pharazim Swordmasters. Nazkai are trying to get out of there. The Pharazim Swordmasters supporting this Elven advance, because it is primarily Mirkwood at this point. You know, Numenor and Dale have very limited manpower left. They're just going to be here in a supporting role. The Athala Rangers out of ammunition at this point, I believe. But it all comes down to this. We'll see how successful Dale can be. The Wooden Realm Patrol moving forward, or the attacker should be. Dale probably won't be too successful. They don't have much manpower left. 18 Nazkai, yeah, like I think the problem here is going to be one of quality. Like it is primarily a Mirkwood force that is remaining, which means Hiri Lang in significant numbers. When I say significant numbers, there's some Spears of Emendwyr back here. The fact that the Greenwood Rangers still have ammunition is bound to be a problem for Isengard though. Snaga skirmishers continuing to throw. These Nazkai continuing to try and get out of here, but they may be cut off by the Athala Rangers and then destroyed. I mean, small margins, this is a very close fight. I mean, 22 Nazkai could be the difference between victory and defeat. unit as strong as that. And I mean, here the Isengard Ballista is undoubtedly going to try and get some shots on Mirkwood as they advance towards the Golden Hall. Amron. Daily and Rogar continuing to move forward. Spears of Emondwyr. What have we got here? So the Lurtz Hunting Pack. So Isengard actually pushing out of the fortifications that they have, and I think that's because they realise if they're going to win this, they probably need to use their ballista to try and peel away the elven manpower. But I mean, it's risky because they're sending in these reinforcements piece by piece. Like, it's not a unified effort, which is bad news. And of course, as they move in, their own men will block the way of their own ballista. And of course, let's not forget, Nazkai and Lurtz Hunting Pack are all well and good. But Uruk-hai crossbowmen in melee are not going to be sufficient to defeat the vast majority of elven units that they're going to be facing off against here. There are the Adunheim shadow bows trying to do some damage. Again, at this point in the battle, with how close it is, 14 rangers again could be the difference between victory and defeat. The problem here is Mirkwood still have got all of these ranged units that have ammunition. This ballista needs to get into a position where it can fire, otherwise it's all over for them. I feel like the elves have just got a little bit too much in terms of quality, and obviously with stuff like the Dalian Royal and Pharazim Swordmasters in support, can the ballista start firing quickly? Because Isengard are in danger here of this battle getting away from them. 6 more Spears of Emondwyr charging up the hill to join this assault, but this is pretty much all both sides have left at this point. There's more Isengard forces charging out now. Paladins' forces lagging behind the forces of Waffles, and of course that could be the mistake which finishes them off, because Waffles isn't going to have much left by the time Paladins' reinforcements actually get here. Arrows flying in. Dunheim shadow bows doing the business. Greenwood Rangers trying to manoeuvre around to get a shot, but I don't think they're going to have that luxury, to be honest with you. Paladin needs to just send everything in at this point. It really is a case of all or nothing at this late stage in proceedings. They're fighting in tired the Woodland Realm Patrol. Here the Uruk-hai pikes are now moving in. The Uruk-hai crossbows trying to fire. They need to get a little bit closer, I think, because again, 34 crossbows firing in could be really, really significant. But they're going after the shadow bows. What they really need to be going after is something like Pharazim Swordmasters. That there is Paladin's Nazkai as well. I mean, this is very, very close. If Isengard go on to win this, it'll be because Paladin and Waffles didn't engage the enemy out here at the crossroads at the same time. Which would be, you know, that would be a gutting way to lose the fight, really. The last way you want to be losing a fight is like that. Victory seems certain for the Spears of Emondwyr. And again, they're facing off against stuff like out-of-ammunition crossbows and extremely depleted Uruk-hai and half-orcs. But there are Lurtz Hunting Pack, and there are the remnants of 2 units of Nazkai in there, which that could be enough to carry Isengard to victory, especially with the support of those crossbows. Although I say that, the crossbows literally just ran out of ammunition, so they're just going to charge in now and be more of a meat shield in melee. I think seeing the fact that their assault is in danger here of falling apart here, Mirkwood. Mirkwood's strength here was always the fact that they had a unit of, you know, healthy rangers here in the late game, as well as some Woodland Realm Patrol that had ammunition, and they just weren't able to use them here, and it could be that Isengard are able to carry that through to a victory. Pharazim Swordmasters, again, like, yeah, I think Isengard have got it. They've got pikes, they've got armour piercing from the Nazkai, the Lurtz Hunting Pack are in there as well, adding more quality. All of the depleted units they've got as well, just acting as meat shields. Isengard pulling out a victory, and this is, again, a really close battle, a battle of real quality in spite of the players being perhaps, you know, less experienced than some others that we may know. That doesn't make the fight of low quality by any means. It's been a really interesting battle, this one. Isengard defending from the front, and I like it when defenders are like that, when they really make the attackers work for it, because something which attackers are very often guilty of is filtering their men in or not attacking as a unified force, and the latter is what the attackers were guilty of here a bit. Numenor went in first, Dale and Mirkwood lagging behind a little bit. Dale singled out by Isengard after, you know, Numenor's attack started to falter. Mirkwood still didn't move in, and that of course allowed, you know, Dale were in a perfect position for Isengard to do a ton of damage with them, or to them. And obviously a big part of Isengard's victory here will be their ballistas and their crossbows. But their infantry had to play their part. Their infantry had to hold the line against a very scary force, especially the Numenor and Mirkwood armies. That was a lot of really nasty infantry they had to deal with. They had to deal with 3 units of rangers on the attack as well, which, in a settlement as exposed as Edoras, attacking archers can be a real problem. And I think they did very good at that. And Isengard, not necessarily the best faction at dealing with that sort of thing, especially since lower tier archers have been made less of a presence. Uruk-hai archers, not really... They weren't really ever particularly good at skirmishing because of their lower numbers anyway. Woodland Realm Patrol returning from routing, but it's too late. Isengard are going to be victorious here. They are going to be able to pull out the win just about. In the end, Waffles and Paladin engaging at different times didn't turn out to be a huge issue. The Dunheim Shadowbows continuing to fire. Well, the Greenwood Rangers are now routing the Woodland Realm Patrol, really the only thing that is remaining. And Isengard, they have killed Rohan, and the force that came here to try and reclaim Edoras has been thrown off. So Saruman has victory. Grima, I'm sure, will continue to be the de facto ruler in the Golden Hall with his Uruk-hai underlings there. And there we go. The worst possible fate for the free peoples of Middle-earth. A resurgent Isengard. Very well played from the defenders, though. I feel as though they deserved this, with how they defended on the front foot constantly. Not fearing the attacking archers, not fearing the attacking quality, is good. And it goes to show that being more frontal with your defence, being bold, can certainly pay off. Like, it could have gone the other way easily if they had committed too much to lost causes. Then they would have been punished for that. But they got the balance just right here, and that's all that really matters. Very even kills from everyone, really, on both the attackers and the defenders. I don't think the attackers did too much wrong. I think it really just came down to the fact that they didn't attack as a unified force as much as they really could have. And then it came down to sort of individual things, like if those Greenwood Rangers had managed to get into a position to shoot in the late game into that Isengard blob, the attackers would have won. The damage would have been far too much from a unit of Elven Rangers. But they weren't able to do that in the end, and I feel as though that was because Isengard were once again aggressive. They did fall back, and then they saw the opportunity to come back out and engage. And their pikes and their Nazkai and Lurtz hunting pack did the rest. So let's see what did the damage for both of these armies. So we can see here the Nazkai doing very well in melee, the Berserkers doing okay, Guards of Orthanc holding out, if not getting a lot of kills. This unit of Lurtz hunting pack actually didn't do very well for Armed Paladin. I would imagine that the unit from Waffles did significantly better based on how it managed to cut through the Mirkwood Palace Guard. Where's the Ballista? 170 is decent, considering they weren't using Flaming Shot and considering the quality of the attacking armies. 170 is a decent return. 172 on a unit of Uruk-hai, which is not bad either. Crossbows again. None of these are particularly mind-blowing, but you have to remember that most of the attacking armies were on the smaller side. Dale's was a little bigger, but Numenor and Mirkwood definitely going for quality. Waffles, on the other hand, Lurtz hunting back, yeah, 204 kills, that's much more like it. Obviously, that was a key moment in the fight, because if Mirkwood had won that fight with the Palace Guard, the momentum would have been too much, I think, for Isengard, but the Lurtz hunting pack doing the damage. The crossbows also doing very well. Snaga, it's interesting to see, because I think over here, Paladin's melee units did significantly better than Waffles, but Waffles' ranged units did significantly better than Paladin's. So it's an interesting little split there, but then again, Waffles was going up against Mirkwood and Numenor almost exclusively, whereas Paladin was the one who seemed to be putting the majority of the pressure onto Dale, so again, makes a certain amount of sense. But a very good battle. This also is a battle that was from about a month ago, I believe it got sent to me. So again, going through some of the ones which I kind of missed, and I do go back, and if I do miss them, like, don't panic too much. Like a month or so later, it may very well show up, like some of the ones that I've been showing here. And of course, this was born mainly out of necessity because again, the battle that was dubbed the Witch King's Sanctum just refused to work, and I really don't know what it is about the newer maps which causes that, but it is a consistent problem, I have to say. I don't know what it is, but they seem to crash quite a lot, and it's not so bad if the battle is like around 30,000 frames long and it's on a map which is not overly extensive, because it will generally only crash about once, and I have sort of gotten used to when I'm on a map which is likely to crash, I can kind of frame it in such a way that makes it less likely to. But with the Witch King's Sanctum one, it's not going to happen, I don't think, that replay, which is a real shame because it does look like a really high quality battle, which I really wanted to show. But I only managed to get about 12k frames into a 60k frame battle, and I had 3 crashes. So already the replay was in 3 separate parts, and it just isn't going to work. I don't know what's happening here. I am curious, actually, as to whether or not other content creators are running into this. It might be just me because of the shaders that I use, and I basically crank the graphics up as far as I possibly can without being ridiculous about it. But even so, like, this has never been a real issue before. Like, not really. Like, it has been... There have been crashes before on stuff like the old Horton scenarios, but that was because, you know, there was, like, literally 10,000 men in a big blob, and there was body-piercing shots going right through the middle of it. So, you know, that was a little bit more understandable because, you know, obviously the game can only do so much. But here, it seems to be crashing just when there isn't really anything happening. Like, I can be, like, just moving around the map. Archers can be shooting at a single isolated unit, and that'll be enough to cause it to crash on the newer maps. And I really don't understand why that may be. Now, I can understand that these maps have probably been created fairly quickly. And, you know, maybe not a lot of play testing has gone on with them because they want to release these sort of new maps. And I understand that. Like, I really want to show new maps. Like, new maps are the lifeblood of the game at this point. You know, you want to be showing fresh new content. And that Witch King Sanctum map looks brilliant as well. And as a 5v3 siege, it had tons of promise. But I feel as though there is something in the new maps which is causing problems. I don't know what they may be. Now, I could show that Witch King Sanctum map, potentially, but I would have to turn off my shaders and turn the graphics right down to minimum, so you would be seeing Medieval 2 at its absolute ugliest. So it'd be like almost like late 90s tier graphics, which, if people really want me to do that, I will. But just know that it's a real horror show, you know, and that must have been how those players managed to get through that battle in the first place. It's a real shame when that is the kind of sort of thing that I'm going to have to do to maybe get through a replay. And I understand that people have taken time out of their schedules to make these maps, but I feel fairly confident after a fairly sizable siege like this with fairly decent blobs, especially the Dalian one. Also, rangers firing into blobs. There was no crashes on this map, so it must be the maps and not my recording software. It's definitely not my PC because, you know, I de-dust it every 2 weeks, and it's certainly of the level of quality that can easily handle Medieval 2, as my continued content creation in this particular game shows. But yeah, like, while people take the time out of their day to make maps, I pretty much sacrifice the entirety of my weekend to make sure that my channel doesn't languish and die. So there is a bit of annoyance from my part as well that, you know, maybe just a little bit of play testing wouldn't go amiss when making these. And, you know, again, some of the new maps that have been made, such as the one that Eclipse made for Umbar, some of the earlier sort of maps that were added didn't seem to suffer from these problems because I think some people played them before they were released, whereas I'm not really sure what the process is for making sure that they're ready to be put into the game. But who knows? Like, again, I'm not really sure what's causing it, like I say, but, you know, when a game is not even a quarter of the way through and it's already crashed 3 times, chances are I'm not going to be able to use the replay, which really, really bums me out. But yeah, I think this has turned into a bit of a ramble at the end, which is completely unrelated to the battle that I just showed, which is unfortunate because this was definitely a battle of very high quality. And big thank you to Paladin for sending it to me. Like, it's better late than never. I got there in the end. And yeah, it's always good to see EDORAS. We haven't seen EDORAS on 0.97 yet after all, so it's good to see again one of WK's fine pieces of work finding its way into the game once more. Hopefully when the hotfix comes out, I'll be able to show Minas Ithil as well, which is the only one of his maps that I have not yet shown. Obviously, again, a very nice quality map. It's a huge map as well, though, so again, that's something for the future, I suppose. I'm not really sure how far out the hotfix may be. I think it's one of those things which is just slowly being developed, especially seeing as Silmarillion Total War has also captured people's attention at this point, so some of the developers are making stuff for that as well. But yeah, I think enough of the rambling. I think at this point, you know, it's turned into a bit of a sort of almost like a mini channel update here at the tail end of this particular battle. So yeah, I'm not really sure what replay will be next because, of course, I had built my schedule around kind of hoping to do some of the newer maps first. I think next up, I think it's, again, like, I'm not sure, like the Buur-Sagath one, I don't have the right map for that, so I think I'll have to message Eclipse to see if I can get the right version of whatever map they used for that one if I'm going to do the Buur-Sagath scenario that he sent me. Otherwise, I think it may be time that I can revisit Rivendell potentially. There's a lot of Rivendell sieges that were sent to me after all, and a lot of people were very eager for me to show them, so I can go back and maybe do one of those. Or I could potentially do another one on Thranduil's Halls. We shall see. Again, it's just a case that I'm going to have to just go through my replay list and pick something that I believe would be appropriate. We shall see. But again, big thank you to Paladin. Big thanks to all of the players that played in this battle as well, because it was, in spite of my rambling at the end, it was the battle was the main attraction here, and it was a very high quality one. So big thanks to all the players that joined in. And yeah, despite me not knowing what will be next, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.